Hello and welcome to this very special video presentation. I'd like to initially thank Neo from Warcolors in Cyprus for reaching out to me on Twitter after seeing some posts of mine, all my miniatures painted in this very Herohammer coloured era, very iconic of the time, and Neo reached out and said, hey, would you like to collaborate with me at all on some projects? I said I'd love to. Neo, thank you very much for reaching out, mate, and he kindly sent me some of the paints that are from the Nostalgia 94 range. Now they're available now from their web store. I'll leave links in the video description so you can check out Warcolors yourself to see what's available. They did have a Nostalgia 88 range that came in bottles like this, like the original Citadel paint range came in these round flip-top bottles, okay, like so. And yeah, it sort of set the old hammer community alight, thinking, wow, we can get all these wonderful old style paints as we remember them as kids, when you had the creature set, monster set, expert set, all those kind of wonderful paint sets. And yeah, they're a great addition. I especially love the Goblin Green that they released for this range. Now, sadly, the Nostalgia 88 range is now being phased out, and I hope it does return in these new, wonderful bottles, labelled appropriately. I think maybe that's what Neo is intending. I hope so, because these bottles were voted in a customer survey. Neo sent these out to all the different groups on Facebook and online in different social networking groups and areas to say, hey guys, we're going to release a Nostalgia 94 range. Please let us know, please do this survey so we have all the information ready for us before we start producing the paints. And he tried to collect as many of the original 94 paints as he could that people could donate to him, and they could, using paint chemistry to try to match them as closely as possible. And they've come up with this set with these dropper bottles, because people voted on the dropper bottles and that kind of thing, which I think is a really good move. I really like dropper bottles, as I'm a Vallejo fan. I have been for over a decade, maybe 2 decades now, painting using Vallejo paints, and I like that dropper bottle system as much as I like the nostalgia of the flip-top bottles. The tops tend to break off because of the plastic seal, and it's obviously opening and closing all the time. And you tend to get paint on your thumb a lot when you open them up, and then you pick up your model and you got paint on your model. So yeah, and this nostalgia aside, I think the dropper bottles are much better. Now, I even bought a brand new palette from Redgrass Games. This is the version 2 studio palette, and I want to thank my patrons for helping me finance this, because it's not cheap. It's quite an expensive bit of kit, this one. So I got that, and I got one of these painting handles as well, which I thought would be nice for painting videos that we're going to do in the future. So thank you again, patrons, for supporting me as now a full-time creator and miniature painter, and taking commissions from Ebby Led Studios to make this happen. And I really wanted to get a new palette, so it's a nice clean surface for Neo's new beautiful paints. Okay, so the very first colour I'm going to use is Sunburst Yellow. And when you take the cap off, now the cap's got some kind of security seal on it, okay? Which is good for kids, like my little snotling, Leo, okay, for opening up the paints, but you need to push down to unscrew the top of the lid. And the first thing you'll notice that I found very interesting was this paint nozzle, okay? And I actually came to really appreciate this design feature because, you can just sort of point and push on the palette, and it doesn't seem to get clogged up as much as the other Vallejo ones that I've been using. So I really like that particular aspect of the paint. Okay, now my palette is actually pretty wet. Okay, maybe a little bit too wet. So I might just readjust the wetness of my palette and come back in a second and apply some yellow to our Mega Gargant. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to take my paintbrush here and Now I've already tested the yellow out, and I've been really impressed with it, because now I'm obviously using a white undercoat here, but I was really impressed with the opaqueness of the paint, because usually yellow is terrible for coverage and that kind of thing, but I was surprised to find that this particular yellow has pretty good coverage. And now obviously it needs to have a very light undercoat or a base coat to paint on. You obviously can't do it over blacks and very dark colors. Obviously no yellow does that. No yellow, even an ochre or something like that, wouldn't do that either. And if you're going to paint yellow, always paint with a white surface when doing that. I'm just going to paint this section here just to give you an idea of what the paint's like. As I said, I'm really happy with it. This will definitely replace the Vallejo game color yellow that I used, even though that's obviously a good paint too, but I really like how the Nostalgia 94 paint feels, and again it gives you good coverage and overall very happy with it. And I also painted a Bretonian Knight's Barding with it as well. I airbrushed it first, put the paint through an airbrush, which works fine, and then after that I painted it by hand and had zero issues with it. So very happy with this one, Neo. This yellow did a very good job. So I can imagine my Bad Moon being painted with this at some stage. Now it's important to note that no yellow paint is going to have opaqueness to cover darker colors, so you always need to paint using a white background, white underlay. Okay, we're going to let that dry now and come back for another coat in just a moment. Okay, so we had a look at the yellow. The yellow I'm very impressed with. Now we're going to look at Chaos Black. Okay. And I can think of nothing better to paint in Chaos Black. And the Keeper of Secrets, or the Sex Cow, as Carnifex likes to call it, needs some black boots. And again, black is another colour I'm really impressed with in the Nostalgia 94 range. It's good coverage and has that nice satin finish, which I think is really important when you're painting this kind of era appropriate models. You want that satin look, but yeah, it goes on really nicely. So I'm really happy with the black, really happy with that a lot actually. Now I think we'll go to some blood red handle, and of course with Chaos Dwarves then a lot of it's red, especially on their armor scales and that kind of thing. So let's have a look at that. Now the red I have had time to test out before, and I really like the red a lot. In fact, I'm so impressed with this red. This is my red for life at this stage, because I had trouble finding a nice red in other ranges, and they changed the recipe on a certain other range that I was really happy with for that time. But this red has just sealed the deal for me. I'm really happy with it. Okay, well, let's try chainmail this time. Now, normally, if I'm painting metallics, I would paint the scale armor in black first and go over it with metallics, but I'm going to go straight over the white in this case and just see how it goes. And like I said, with the Mithril Silver, really impressed with that paint so far, and I'm now feeling that this is the first time I'm using chainmail, that I feel the same way about the chainmail. Now, so let me just point this out. Now, this set was sent to me by Neo, of course, for review and to collaborate on a couple of number of projects, painting projects. So, but I wanted to give my honest opinion about the paints, because I'm of course comparing these to my current range and of Vallejo paints. But yeah, without trying to sugarcoat anything, I'm really happy with the paints I've used so far, of the red, black, yellow, and now the chainmail. The chainmail is the first time I'm using it, and I think it's a very, very nice paint. I did get some bolt gun metal as well, and I haven't tried that either, so I'd like to try that. Maybe on this model I will try it, and maybe we can do that on the spear, or maybe I might just pull an orc, an old space orc out and give that a go. Okay, so this is bolt gun metal. It's one of the 3 metallic paints that Leo kindly sent me, so let's see what this looks like on the palette and how this applies to the bolt gun that this orc is going to be carrying. Okay, here's our lovely orc with a bolt gun, also in white. I'm just going to apply that to this part of the magazine on the bolter. And goes on really well. I did give it a good shake because metallics tend to separate in my experience, but that's going straight over the white primer. So that indicates to me, like the other metallics that I've used so far now for the Nostalgia 94 range, that they've got the chemistry right for these, and they apply very nice. Okay, so let's now use serpent bite leather. Was it originally called that? I thought it was called snake bite leather, but maybe snake bite's an IP controversy with Games Workshop. They're using it for the orcs. I don't know why. So serpent bite leather. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was originally called that. But I've not used this paint yet, so I'm going to give it a good shake, and I'm going to paint my little Bannergit's boots with it. Here, and now he's got his little shoes here because he's a common goblin. I like the feel of that already, actually. Yeah, it seems to go on there very nicely. Now, of course, I'm using a white undercoat. Everything's got white undercoat. It's all 90s, isn't it? I use white primer too because I can see the details of the models clearly as well. That's another reason why. But yeah, I'm applying this now to the model, and I'm really liking the feel of it. We can apply a wash, maybe a flesh wash later, and see how that looks on it. But already, yeah, I'm liking it. It feels quite dense, so that's good. Not so light and watery, so that's great. Now, the next paint I want to have a look at is Enchanted Blue. Now, Enchanted Blue I have not used yet, so I'm interested to see what that's like. So let's give that a good shake and put it on the palette. And as it's Enchanted Blue, I thought that it can probably be used on this. This is a commission I'm working for at the moment with these Bretonnian horses. I've used the Sunburst Yellow for this, for the barding over a white primer, so you can see the sort of dried effect of the barding. What I'm going to do, I'm going to apply some of this blue, okay, just straight off the palette, and I'm going to put it onto straight over this black, the reins here, the reins detail goes nicely over the black, just so we can see what it looks like over a darker color, how the paint's applied, because usually blues are more opaque heavy, and yeah, they can go over dark colors with no problem at all, and they seem to be doing quite a nice job of that. Okay, we'll just do it on the other side here as well. But yeah, I like the feel of this as well. This blue, it's a nice color too, actually. Okay, so the next color we're going to use is Bronzed Flesh, and I think I'll apply that to the face of this High Elf Spearman champion and see how that looks. Yeah, looks like the paint's covering pretty well. He's wearing gloves, of course, as well, so yeah, I can only do really the face, but that seems to cover rather well. I'm just going to let that to dry, and we're going to give that a flesh wash in just a moment. Okay, now maybe one you've been waiting for, Goblin Green. Let's see how this Goblin Green stands up to the other Goblin Greens out there in the market. Now, I've used the Nostalgia 88 Goblin Green, which is an absolute fantastic paint. It's got the perfect hue for me, but of course they changed when they went from 88 to 94. And the hex pots, it came with more of this kind of a satin, it's got more of a intense kind of green, or more of a stronger hue to it. Has more contrast to it, so we'll just put that on the palette and see how that looks. Okay, so let's get Nitwit back here again and put some Goblin Green on his base. Seems to be covering rather nicely. Yep, does a good job. Really good coverage, actually. Very nice. Now, some people like this hue. Some people have preferences for a lighter, sort of yellowy hue of Goblin Green. Well, if you do like the Nostalgia 88 ones, in preference to this one, I would get in very quickly to order yours before they are completely phased out. But not too bad. It's pretty consistent with the other, if I'm going to use Vallejo as a comparison, it's very similar to that in terms of its opaqueness and color and that kind of thing. Very, very similar. Now, I think the other one we need to cover really is Skull White. Okay, so I might use that and blend it with one of the other colors to do a highlight or something like that. Okay, so during the break there, I gave this this part here another coat of blue. Okay, but this is the first coat, so there's not a massive difference in terms of coverage. I think it covers very, very well, especially over a dark surface like black. So that's really promising to see. Now we want to try to highlight some of these colors. I'm going to use the white. Okay, now the white is a little thin. I've tried this yesterday, and it does come out nice and thin. Now there's good points and bad points about thin paint. One is that if it's nice and thin, it doesn't get all claggy and it doesn't cover up detail. It's you need a couple of points. I think this would be really good as a white to mix in. If you're looking for coverage, maybe the coverage will be not so good in different applications, but I think something to mix in and blend in with another color, I think it's really nice. Now, as you know, I'm not using any water with the paints at all either. Usually with other paint ranges, I'll need to add water in to just thin them out a little bit. These paints are already thinned out, so I really like that aspect to it. Of course, I'm using a wet palette, so it adds a bit more moisture to the paint, but I like the fact that I don't need to add more water to thin them out. So I'm just going to apply a very simple typical 90s outlined kind of highlight here. Like so. Okay, now if you wanted to do some kind of blending here, it works very well for that as well. Okay, so this is the yellow glaze. Okay, let's see how it does. Now it's going to be very, very thin in its consistency here. You can see it's just like water. It's almost like watered paint. Okay, but the glaze itself, it's going to just smoothen out things. I think that's probably the best way of doing that. As you can see, that it's on my wet palette here. It's very, very watery, very, very yellowy. But yeah, it's just going to add that extra kind of yellow, kind of intensity to the yellow I put down here already. And I've been playing around with some of the glazes, and I really like them. I really like them for using on gemstones and that kind of thing. That intense kind of richness to the color. And that's really what it's really doing. It's giving an added richness to it. There's a little red glaze. Let's check this out. I'll give them a shake anyway, just so that. Oh, look at that. It looks really nice, isn't it? On the palette there, very rich in color. And I'm just going to apply that directly to my red armored cow's dwarf. Now I did give the red a couple of coats, as you normally do. That's just normal. There's very few reds that can give a one coat solution. So I'm just going to apply that to the back, just to give it a nice, rich, intense kind of red on the clay. Again, we'll let that to dry, and we'll come back in a minute and to have a look at the results. Okay, now one of the ones we haven't looked at is the washes. Now I do have one wash in this set, which comes with the standard basic set, which is a flesh wash. We're going to apply that to our elf spearman. Again, give it a good shake. So we're going to apply that. Now it's a wash, so it'd be pretty intense unless you sort of really thin it out. I'm just going to thin it out here and apply that directly to the face of my elven champion here. It's very much like the original flesh wash. I really can't see much different. Now I think chestnut ink is different than flesh wash, so again, the full complement of washes, inks, glazes, paints will be available in due time. Okay, so just be playing. So we'll wait till it dries, and we'll come back in a minute. Now, as we don't have the full complement of washes yet, and I would like to do the bolt gun on this orc, thanks to Cameron, one of my patrons, he sent me this kindly as a included in some boxes, empty boxes of Man of War that adorn my walls now, along with some kale stuff. So thanks again, Cameron. We're going to do this as a bit of a nostalgia throwback to the old days of Armor Wash. It's going to come out again for the Nostalgia 94 range, so don't worry. We're making its debut again. I'm just going to take that straight out of the pot and apply it straight over that bolt gun metal. And what I might do, I might use some blue glaze and put that over the armor, the chainmail on my elven hero as well, and see what that looks like. I think they'll look nice actually, as I do like to use some blue washes and that kind of thing over armor. So let's check out what that does. I always liked elves with blue kind of mithril silver armor. I think that looks much nicer than using a black ink. But you could use this, you can mix this with this glaze with the black ink and get a nice effect like that as well. As you can see, I'm applying that nicely. Again, there's no sort of big separation of the glaze. It's adhering to the metallics really well. I think it only needs one coat really, because you just want that sort of tint of, it's basically just tinting the metallic color. And another glaze I want to have a look at is green glaze. Okay, and we'll apply that to some of the orc skin. Now I have played around with this a little bit. It's more of a blue-green then a green, as you can see here. With a touch of blue in it, but still very, very vibrant, very, very intense green color. To my little orc here, and I'm just going to apply that to like under his lip there, on the top of his, on top of his lip, underneath his, or top of his, underneath his nose, underneath his lip. Can't talk properly. In his ears here, and just around his head here as well. Let's use some water and just blend it out a little bit. But yeah, you can give your orcs some nice intense colours. I did use it on my wolf riders when I was painting them, and I really liked how the glaze gives that really intense green colour to your flesh tones. But yeah, use it in moderation. Don't just wash everything with it. I would use it just in the places where you want to tint things, because it's kind of permanent. So it's like if you go in a certain area that you don't want to tint in a certain color, then you need to go back and paint it again. But as you can see in this demonstration, it gives a certain type of green hue and intense kind of look to the skin. So if that's the kind of look you're aiming for, I think the green will do really nicely. It might be nice on banners and heraldry, and like for wood elves, for example, they're mainly green in a lot of cases. Their cloaks and that kind of thing. You could use the glaze just to really enhance and enrich the colors a lot more. So that hopefully that gives you an idea of what the green looks like. I thought we'll also, now we have our horse here, we're going to use some of that blue glaze. I'm just going to glaze this here, and now you can see that real intense richness. Now you think, well, an ink does the same thing, but I think the glazes just sort of tint it, and I think they're just a nice way to get that kind of very intense color, but in a very, very thinned out consistency here. So it's almost, like I said, it's almost like water. Basically, inks tend to be a lot more heavier in pigment. So, but I like the glazes. I really like using them a lot. There is one. We could try to mix some of the red glaze and yellow glaze together and try to get some nice sort of shading in here on the yellow barding. Might try that. You only need a little bit. A bit too much red in there, actually. I thought, just see what that looks like as a way of shading the barding a little bit. And it just shows that you can mix the glazes together. Okay. And I would go less than more and just sort of build up your glazes in areas that you want to show more definition in the folds of the fabric or whatever it might be that you're painting. Okay, so we can see the glaze are dried now, and I'll just mix that with my paint to smooth out areas or whatever. That's how I would normally apply it. I would just mix it into my paint normally, because otherwise the glazes sort of come a little bit patchy and that kind of thing. And that way you can sort of just blend it into your yellow like that. But it's a good alternative. I like the glazes because it does bring that sort of intense color that I need for these kind of models. As I'm not looking for a matte finish, I'm looking for much sort of a satin glossy finish to the paints. So yeah, I think it works really well. And I can just keep going with that and just applying it to other parts of the model. So, if that technique's a little bit too difficult for you, then I would just use it in very light washes around the model, sort of just building up that way, or you can mix it in with your paints and do it the other alternative way. Alright, so we've got our orc here that's being glazed. I'm going to put some goblin green in here with the sunburst yellow, and you know, you can use that as you could add that to the green here as well if you wanted to, the glaze as well. Get some really nice intense kind of blends in here and that kind of thing, just to play around with the different sort of skin tones you can achieve with that, especially with that yellow in there. You could even glaze with a bit of that green and yellow together for a much lighter, and I think I did that before too in one of my AV-led painting videos or tutorials for somebody. Just mixing those two together gives a nice sort of mid-tone kind of glaze, and you know, you can play around with that as well. So the glazes add some intensity to the color. They can thin out your paints as well if you want really, really thin kind of paints to work with when you're doing your highlights. So I like that sort of partnership between the glazes and the paints as well. I think that works out really, really well. Yeah, just add some extra vibrancy to your colors and to your painting, and gets those highlights nice and smooth, and but still, you know, you add that kind of vibrancy to the finish as well. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this review, and I hope Neo from Warcolors also enjoyed my perspectives on the paints, and I hope this kind of review gives you a good sense of what the paints are like, what they look like on the palette, how they act when applied to the models, and it gives you sort of a good sort of base to work on when thinking about and considering about placing your order for the starter set or the glaze set. So I hope that you enjoyed this video as well. Please place your comments in the video description. If you have any questions you want to ask me about the paints, there'll be a series of videos that I'll be doing now which will incorporate these paints with some Vallejo paints that I have on here, because I don't have the full range of nostalgia paints, unfortunately. So we can look at how they work with existing ranges. So because we are in this sort of, you know, people talk about the golden age of gaming. We have so many games and various different companies making great games. Well, we're in the sort of golden age of paints as well. So we have various companies. It's not like 1994 we had just like Citadel Paints and a couple other ones. Now we have all these different companies making great products for us now, so we should enjoy them, incorporate them together, and find out the best, you know, colors and best ones that sort of match your painting criteria. So guys, we'll leave it there. Thanks again for watching. Take care, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.
Massive thank you to Neo from Warcolors for sending me these paints for review. Please stay tuned for more videos coming soon on painting tutorials of the miniatures featured in this video. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Goodbye.